The golden light of dawn stretched long shadows across the asphalt of Memorial Hospital's parking lot as Dr. Nathan Carter stepped out of the OR. He had just completed a marathon emergency surgery, a desperate attempt to save a young mother clinging to life after a catastrophic car accident. Thanks to his steady hands and years of experience, she was now stable. They had called him in at 40. Was Nathan. He never turned his back when someone's life teetered on the edge. Incredible work, Dr. Carter, said Elena Rice, his chief resident, as they scrubbed out together. Her voice carried a mix of awe and exhaustion. I've never seen someone handle a triple bypass and control internal bleeding like that. The trick, Nathan replied, his deep authoritative voice filling the sterile space, is staying calm. Panic kills faster than any injury ever could. Still drying her hands, Elena hesitated before speaking again. You know, the hospital could have called someone else. You were supposed to be at the conference. Nathan grabbed a towel, wiping his hands methodically, his gaze flicking to his phone. The screen was blank, no messages or calls from Olivia. It was almost 9 in the morning. Ignoring the growing unease gnawing at him, he said, there are things more important than conferences anyway. I should head home. I've been trying to show my face around there more. Elena shifted uncomfortably before blurting out, Dr. Wilson mentioned, well, at the charity dinner last week, your wife said something about you being married to your job instead of her. Darkened for a moment. That charity dinner, it was where he'd seen Olivia sipping too much wine and laughing just a little too freely at his younger brother James's joke. At the time, he dismissed it, focusing instead on securing donations for the hospital's new trauma center. My marriage is fine, he said firmly, ending the conversation. Go over the charts and call me if there are any changes. Dr. Vivian Chen, the hospital's new trauma specialist, had been observing Nathan throughout the surgery. She approached him as he headed toward the exit. That was masterful work in there, she said, falling into step beside him. Some kind of legend, Nathan nodded politely. Just doing my job, Dr. Chen. How are you settling in? Well enough, she replied. Though I've noticed some inconsistencies in our equipment inventory that concern me. Mind if I run some things by you later this week? Of course, Nathan said, making a mental note. Email my office to set up a time. The drive home was a brisk 20 minutes, his Mercedes cutting through the quiet hum of early morning traffic. He decided to surprise Olivia, a small attempt to make up for the anniversary dinner he'd missed last month after an emergency had pulled him away. But as the garage door rolled open, the sight of an unfamiliar black Porsche in his parking spot brought his plans to a halt. James, Nathan muttered, recognizing the car as his younger brother's latest flashy purchase. As a medical equipment supplier, James had a knack for turning charm into profit, unlike Nathan, who'd poured everything into healing. Opposites, one chasing success, the other chasing purpose. Inside the house, an eerie silence greeted him, broken only by the faint sound of running water upstairs. In the kitchen, 2 empty wine glasses stood next to a half-eaten takeout meal from Le Blanc, Olivia's favorite restaurant. He brushed his fingers over the glasses. They were still damp. A leather jacket hung by the door, its size and style unmistakably masculine. Nearby, a pair of muddy running shoes lay haphazardly on the polished Italian tiles. Nathan's stomach tightened. The scene was wrong. It had the same ominous feeling as spotting a complication mid-surgery. Subtle, but undeniable. Halfway up the stairs, his worst fears began to crystallize. Laughter echoed from the bedroom, one voice unmistakably male, deep and self-assured. The other was Olivia's. Her laugh, once a sound he loved, now sent a cold chill through his veins. You're insatiable, the man teased. It was James's voice. You know how to treat a woman, Olivia purred in response, her tone dripping with disdain. Not like Nathan. All work, no play. Nathan froze, his pulse hammered in his ears, but his body moved on autopilot. He pushed open the bedroom door. Steam poured out of the ensuite bathroom, carrying the unmistakable scent of Olivia's expensive jasmine body wash, the one he brought her from Paris. The bed was a mess, the sheet crumpled and damp. On the nightstand, a small brown bottle caught his eye. Olivia's sister Rachel, a pharmaceutical rep, had prescribed those sleeping drops. Then James appeared, stepping out of the bathroom, water glistening on his stone frame, a towel slung casually around his hips. Stopped dead when he saw Nathan. But instead of guilt, his lips curled into a cocky smirk. "Didn't expect you home so soon," James said, his tone infuriatingly casual. "Guess the conference wasn't as fun as last night." He turned, calling over his shoulder, "Thanks for the wild night, babe, same time tomorrow." Olivia emerged next, draped in a silk robe Nathan had bought her during their trip to Paris. Her wet blonde hair clung to her skin, faint marks on her shoulders visible. Marks that had nothing to do with Nathan. She met his gaze without a flicker of remorse. "No need to look so shocked," she said, her voice dripping with cruelty. Running her fingers down James's arm, she added, "You've just been a placeholder, Nathan." Keeping his spot warm, for a moment, the world narrowed. Every life he'd saved, every ounce of control he'd spent years perfecting, collapsed into pure, undiluted rage. He moved with the precision that made him a legend in the OR. His fist connected squarely with James's jaw, sending him sprawling, teeth scattering across the marble floor. "You're out of your damn mind," James yelled, his voice slurred through bloodied lips as he scrambled to regain his footing on the slick tiles. "Stop it, Nathan," Olivia screamed, though her words carried more anger than fear. "You're just jealous. At least he knows how to treat a woman." Nathan's voice, icy and controlled, cut through the chaos. "Get out." His hand closed around James's throat, his movements deliberate, honed by years of martial arts training. The same hands that had mended countless hearts now gripped with that controlled precision, sending a clear message that restraint was a choice Nathan was making. For now, he dragged his half-naked brother down the stairs, each thud of James's feet against the hardwood echoing through the house. Olivia trailed behind, yelling incoherently, clutching her silk robe to her chest. Outside, the neighbors were treated to a spectacle worthy of a soap opera. Phones appeared in windows, cameras capturing every second as Nathan unceremoniously threw James onto the front lawn. "You can't do this," Olivia shrieked, her voice cracking as Nathan turned back toward the house. Undeterred, Nathan began gathering her belongings, tossing designer dresses, handbags, and shoes into trash bags with cold efficiency. "This is my house too," Olivia screamed from the doorway, rage coloring her words. "I made you who you are." Nathan paused, glancing over his shoulder. "The house is in my name," he said, his voice steady and deliberate. "Just like the practice you and James tried to steal, I built all of this while you played socialite with my money." With that, he deposited the stuffed bags on the porch. Then, turning to his wife of 8 years, he delivered his final words. "You have 30 minutes to collect your things and leave. Anything left behind will be donated to the women's shelter downtown." "You'll regret this," Olivia spat, her nails biting into her palms. "We'll ruin you, destroy everything you've built. By the time we're done, no one will trust Dr. Nathan Carter with a scalpel." Nathan's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You know what the difference is between us, Olivia. I save lives, you ruin them. Now get out of my house before I forget my Hippocratic oath." By the time the locksmith, Tony Garcia, arrived, Nathan was in full damage control mode. Tony worked quickly, replacing every lock and adding new security measures to the windows. As Nathan walked him to the door, he handed over a generous tip. "For what it's worth," Tony hesitated, glancing at Nathan. "My first wife pulled something similar. Caught her with my best friend. Sometimes the trash takes itself out." Once the door closed behind Tony, Nathan returned to the bedroom to examine what he'd uncovered while packing Olivia's things. In her antique French vanity, hidden beneath makeup trays and perfume bottles, discovered a concealed compartment. Inside was a burner phone and a small notebook scrolled with account numbers and passwords. The phone told its own damning story. Hundreds of texts between Olivia and James, each one peeling back another layer of betrayal. "James, your equipment invoices are marked up 300%. Your darling husband's too busy saving lives to check the numbers." "Olivia, of course, he trusts his precious baby brother completely. Idiot never questioned why I suddenly wanted to handle his medical supplies. James, Kayla has the books, looking perfect. Amazing what people will do to keep their secrets buried." Olivia. Speaking of which, Rachel came through with more specialty tea. Nathan set the phone down, bile rising in his throat. James hadn't just been overcharging his medical practice, he'd orchestrated a full-scale scam with Olivia and even Kayla Thompson, his trusted office manager, playing critical roles. References to specialty sent Nathan to the kitchen, where he found his favorite chai blend. The seal had been carefully broken and resealed. They'd been drugging him on his rare days off, ensuring he stayed unconscious while they carried on their affair under his roof. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his growing fury. A message from Richard Blackwell, the private investigator Nathan had hired right after throwing Olivia and James out. Found something big. Your brother's been running this scam for years. How soon can you meet? Nathan didn't hesitate. 20 minutes later, he walked into Richard's office on the top floor of a converted warehouse. The space buzzed with tech, surveillance equipment, and computer monitors. Richard, a former FBI cyber crime agent, didn't waste time with pleasantries. This goes deeper than we thought, Richard said, gesturing Nathan toward a wall of screens. James has been pulling this scheme for years. Your practice was just his biggest payday yet. The monitors displayed a complex web of transactions, surveillance footage, and social media connections. Richard pointed to a video of James meeting Kayla Thompson in the parking garage of Nathan's practice 2 weeks earlier. Kayla is altering patient records to make it look like your practice is using far more equipment than it actually is, Richard explained. The excess inventory gets written off, then resold on the gray market. Nathan's jaw clenched, and Olivia, Richard sighed. She used her social connections to introduce James to other successful doctors. He plays the charming supplier, undercuts competitors, and once he's in, starts inflating prices. Most of his victims don't notice until it's too late. Richard clicked to a series of email exchanges between Olivia's sister Rachel and several hospital staff members. Rachel has been planting rumors about your sleeping problems for months, Richard said. It's all part of their plan to discredit you if you caught on. Nathan stared at the screen, his chest tightening as the depth of the betrayal came into full focus. His practice, his reputation, and even his health. James and Olivia had tried to tear it all apart, but they tried to tear it all apart. Underestimated one thing. Nathan Carter wasn't a man who went down quietly. The emails were methodical, weaving a carefully curated story that excused any red flags. Carter. One read, he's been pushing himself too hard. Wonder Olivia's concerned about him. Another added, Doctor seemed off during rounds today. My baby. It's time he takes a step back. They've set up a rock-solid narrative, Richard said, his tone laced with frustration. If anyone laced with frustration questioned your behavior or noticed discrepancies in the practice's finances, they'd pin it all on exhaustion and a reliance on sleep aids. It's foolproof. Nathan's hands tightened into fists at his sides. What about the sedatives? He asked, his voice clipped with barely controlled anger. Rachel has been pulling strings through her pharmaceutical connection, Richard explained. Nothing too heavy. Just enough to knock you out cold. They've made sure every detail is covered. Nathan turned to the window, his gaze fixed on the city he'd served for over a decade. The reflection staring back at him was calm, composed, outwardly the face of a skilled surgeon and community leader. But his eyes told a different story. They burned with the quiet fury of a man wronged. The practice's 10th anniversary is coming up, Nathan said at last, his voice measured. Time to throw a celebration, Richard frowned. You're not going to the police? Not yet, Nathan replied, turning from the window, his expression hard as stone. Legal action is too fast and too clean. They bury their assets, destroy the evidence, and walk away unscathed. He paused, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. If they want a game, I'll give them one. As if on cue, Nathan's phone buzzed. A message from Lila Bennett, his long-trusted accountant. Found something interesting in James's records. Richard eyed him, concern flickering in his gaze. What are you planning, Nathan? Nathan's lips curved into a chilling smile. You know what separates a good surgeon from a great one. Precision, patience, knowing exactly where to cut to cause the most damage. His tone turned icy. They spent a year plotting my destruction. I'll dismantle their lives one incision at a time. Starting with my brother's dental work. I hear of my brother's dental work. He's been using his own overpriced, low-quality supplies. Richard chuckled, shaking his head. Ruthless. I like it. In the elevator, Nathan adjusted his tie and glanced at his reflection in metallic doors. He looked exactly like what he'd always been, a respected doctor, a trusted figure in his community. But behind the facade, he was something new, a man driven by justice and revenge. 2 weeks later, Nathan sat in his office scanning the week's surgical schedule, when his phone vibrated with another urgent message from Leila. We've uncovered their whole operation, meeting in 20. Bring Richard. He was reaching for his coat when Elena burst into the room. Her face, usually composed, was pale and unsettled. Dr. Carter, you need to see this, she said, handing him a tablet. On the screen was a headline from a local news site. Reputable surgeons practice under scrutiny. Allegations of equipment fraud surface. Nathan's jaw tightened as he scanned the article. Every word was carefully crafted, planting just enough suspicion without making outright accusations. It was a calculated attack from James's PR machine. They're trying to control the narrative, Nathan said, his voice cold. They want to make any accusations we bring against them look like desperate retaliation. Elena shifted uncomfortably. There's more, she added hesitantly. Olivia's been visiting other doctors in your network, spreading rumors. She's telling them you're struggling with prescription drug dependency, and a few are starting to question your ability to practice. Nathan leaned back, his expression unreadable. Perfect, he said after a moment. Elena blinked, startled. Perfect. They're panicking, Nathan explained calmly. Desperation leads to mistakes. Reschedule my afternoon appointments unless it's life or death. I need time to prepare. Doctor. Vivian Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. Think I found what you were looking for, she said, holding up a file. The equipment discrepancies I mentioned, they're systematic and deliberate. Someone's been doctoring our inventory records for months. Nathan nodded. Join us for the meeting. Your expertise could be valuable. Lila's office, perched atop a sleek building in the city's financial district, exuded quiet power. Richard arrived moments after Nathan, carrying hard drives packed with data. Dr. Chen followed, her analytical mind already racing with connections. Lila greeted them briskly, spreading out documents on the polished desk. Your brother isn't just careless, he's arrogant, Lila began, pointing to a row of falsified invoices. That 300% markup you saw before, that's just the surface. He's been running this scheme with at least 5 other practices. Yours, of course, was his biggest prize. Show me everything, Nathan said, his voice cutting through the tension. For over an hour, La and Anne, Richard laid out the intricate network of deceit James and Olivia had built. Using Olivia's social connections, James had gained access to high-profile medical practices, then manipulated supply chains through a maze of shell companies. Profits were funneled into offshore accounts under Olivia's maiden name. Layla pulled up another file, but here's where it gets really interesting. These offshore accounts, Olivia's been managing them for 8 years. She started siphoning funds from your practice almost from the day it turned a profit. 6 months ago, they accelerated the scam, Dr. Chen observed, studying the data. Bigger orders, inflated invoices, fake inventory reports. They're stockpiling money for something big. They were going to take over the practice, Nathan murmured. The pieces falling into place? Claim financial mismanagement, push me out, and paint themselves as the saviors. Layla nodded. Exactly. But their greed left a trail we can use. Layla gestured to a calendar. Your practice's 10th anniversary is coming up. It's the perfect opportunity for a public event, a charity gala, Richard said, a slow grin forming. They won't be able to resist, Dr. Chen added, her eyes lighting up with understanding. Nathan's eyes darkened with determination. Good, we'll give them the spotlight they're craving, and while they're basking in it, I'll tear their web apart. They couldn't resist. Attending the gala was not just an opportunity for James and Olivia to flaunt their fabricated narrative. It was essential. They needed to maintain appearances, show unity, and keep the their illusion intact. For Nathan, it was the perfect setup to spring his trap. Make the arrangements, Nathan instructed coldly, his voice carrying the weight of determination. Spare no expense. This would be the social event of the season. Invite every hospital board member, every local media outlet, and every medical supplier in the region. And make sure James and Olivia are there, especially them. Let's give them one last performance. His phone buzzed as another message came through. This one from Kayla Thompson, requesting an urgent meeting. Without missing a beat, Nathan turned back to Layla. Keep digging into those offshore accounts, he said. I want every transaction tracked and every connection exposed. As Nathan left Layla's office, he made 3 strategic calls. The first was to an event planner, locking in the city's most exclusive venue for the gala. The second was to Elena, instructing her to arrange a meeting with Kayla. The third was to his bank, authorizing a sizable transfer into a new account, one that would fund his elaborate plan for revenge. The pieces were falling into place, and Nathan was ready to accelerate the game. In the weeks leading up to the gala, everything unfolded with surgical precision. Nathan carried on as usual, performing surgeries and attending board meetings, all while quietly setting his plans into motion. James and Olivia, meanwhile, grew bolder. They appeared together at charity events, basking in the attention of their carefully crafted narrative. James posed as the supportive brother, stepping in to help with the overwhelming business side of Nathan's practice, while Olivia played the role of the neglected wife. One morning, Elena entered Nathan's office with a newspaper in hand. She tossed it onto his desk. Frustration edged across her face. The headline read, Medical Innovator, James Carter and Socialite. Olivia Carter, Champion, Healthcare Initiative. Below it was a glossy photo of the pair at a children's hospital fundraiser, Olivia's hand resting possessively on James's arm. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Elena said, crossing her arms. Half the hospital staff is gossiping about how cozy they look. Nathan glanced briefly at the article before returning to his work. Good, he said, the more public they are, the harder they'll fall. Has Kayla confirmed her meeting? Kayla Thompson's office was a stark contrast to its usual pristine state. Papers cluttered the desk, coffee cups sat abandoned, and the air felt heavy with stress. When Nathan walked in, Kayla visibly flinched, her frazzled appearance a reflection of her unraveling composure. Dr. Carter, she stammered, wringing her hands. There's something I need to tell you about James. The invoices, everything. Nathan stepped closer, his voice calm, yet firm. Kayla, about the anonymous payments for your daughter's tuition. They started around the same time our equipment costs tripled, the altered records, all of it. Her face crumpled as tears welled in her eyes. He said it was just crumpled as tears. Creative accounting, she whispered. That insurance would cover the difference and no one would get hurt. But then Olivia started demanding more changes. She threatened to ruin my daughter's future if I didn't comply. Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a steely tone. And the drug charges that vanished from your daughter's record. At her shocked look, he added, I make it my business to know everything about my employees, Kayla, especially those who might be vulnerable to manipulation. Are you going to fire me? She asked, her voice trembling. Nathan reached into his pocket and placed a small recording device on the desk. No, Kayla, I'm giving you a choice. You can continue helping them dismantle everything we've built, or you can help me expose their operation. Either way, your daughter's scholarship is safe. I've arranged for the hospital board to cover it, legitimately. Her hands shook as she picked up the recorder. What do you need me to do? Exactly what they asked, Nathan replied, his voice measured, but this time, document everything. And most importantly, don't let them suspect anything has changed. Later that afternoon, Nathan met James in the conference room of the thought practice. His brother strolled in with his usual cocky demeanor, flashing a grin that revealed his freshly repaired teeth, an overly bright set, likely the result of a bargain procedure. Good to see you moving forward, James said, his smirk widening. About the gala, I've got some cutting-edge equipment lined up for display. It'll really showcase your practice as a leader in innovation. Excellent idea, Nathan replied, his expression neutral. In fact, why don't you oversee the entire equipment presentation? Show everyone what you can do. James's eyes lit up with poorly disguised triumph. "You won't regret this, brother. I'll make sure everyone sees exactly what I'm capable of." Behind the scenes, the trap tightened. Anonymous tips began, trickling into the hospital board, highlighting irregularities in equipment procurement. The state medical board launched an investigation into suspicious prescription patterns. James's company landed on the FDA's watch list. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in his business. Shipments arrived damaged, computer systems crashed inexplicably, and inventory records failed to match. "They're losing their grip," Richard reported one evening. "Kayla's recordings are a goldmine. Olivia can't seem to keep quiet about their plans, especially when she's drinking." "And the offshore accounts?" Nathan asked. "Harvey traced nearly everything," Richard said, smirking. "Years of meticulous planning, all in black and white. But there's more." Martha Donovan's call was unexpected. She claimed to have information about James and out, requested a meeting at LeBlanc. Martha Donovan's arrival was another piece that Nathan hadn't anticipated, but it fit perfectly into his plan. The elegant, silver-haired woman had once been James's mentor in the medical supply business before he betrayed her. Exuding old money confidence, Martha's polished appearance couldn't mask the tension in her posture. "I didn't know James was married," Nathan said as they sat. "I'm sure he didn't mention it," Martha replied. Her smile replied, razor sharp. "Just like he didn't mention his scams or the truth about his parentage." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were medical records and a paternity test. 35 years ago, your mother had an affair with Gabriel Sullivan, a pharmaceutical rep. James isn't your father's son. He knew but raised you both as his own." Nathan scanned the documents, his hand tightening on the table. "This explains a lot. James never had the aptitude for medicine." "It gets better," Martha added, producing more papers. "Sullivan specialized in medical equipment fraud. The same scam James is running now." "And why tell me this now?" Nathan asked. Martha's polished demeanor cracked. "When I tried to expose him 3 years ago, he destroyed me, froze my assets, ruined my reputation. Now I want justice. Your gala is the perfect stage." Before leaving, she handed Nathan a letter from his father. Back at his office, Nathan read the note, his father's familiar handwriting filling the page. "You and James had the same chances, but you chose to heal while he chose to harm. Blood means nothing compared to the farm choices we make. Use this information wisely, Dad." 2 weeks later, the Grand Meridian Hotel buzzed with anticipation as the city's medical elite gathered for Carter Medical Practice's 10th anniversary gala. Crystal chandeliers illuminated James's equipment display, where he charmed investors with his usual bravado. His newly repaired teeth gave his grin a strange asymmetry. "The Carter name stands for innovation," James declared to a crowd. "While my brother focused on surgery, I revolutionized our operations." Nearby, Olivia played her role flawlessly, gliding between social circles in a designer gown. Nathan's obsession with medicine consumed him. She confided tearfully to a sympathetic listener. James stepped in to save the practice. From a strategic position near the entrance, Nathan watched their performance with icy satisfaction. Dr. Chen appeared beside him, elegant in a sleek black dress. "Kayla's recordings are ready, and Rachel Martin is asking to speak with you." Nathan checked his watch. "Let her wait." "Is everything else in place?" Dr. Chen nodded. "Perfectly. The trap was set." Soon, James and Olivia's facade would crumble. What they expected to be a night of triumph would become their undoing. Layla had the financial records ready for display. Richard monitored all exits, and Elena hesitated before speaking. "Mrs. Carter, your mother is seated with Martha Donovan," she said quietly. Nathan nodded. The final twist in his plan. Perfect. Right on schedule. James took the stage, tapping his champagne glass for attention. Cameras focused as the crowd hushed. "Distinguished guests," he began, his artificial teeth gleaming. "Tonight we celebrate 10 years of Carter Medical Practice and a revolution in medical innovation." The massive screens behind him lit up with his company logo, but suddenly flickered and changed. Surveillance footage played, James's voice booming through the ballroom. Not from the podium, but from a recording. James laughed in. The clip, the great Dr. Nathan Carter, too drugged to notice us dismantling his life piece by piece. Those sedatives are worth every penny. Olivia's recorded voice joined in. Poor Nathan. So busy saving lives while we drain him dry. Rachel's specialty works perfectly. Color drained from James's face as recording after recording revealed their scheme. Falsified records, poison supplies, and threats against Kayla's daughter. "This is absurd," James shouted. But his protests were cut short as federal agents stormed in. "James Carter, you're under arrest for medical fraud and conspiracy," an officer announced. Olivia screamed. Her composed mask shattered. "Nathan's the unstable one. He's abusing prescriptions." "That's a lie," Kayla said, stepping forward with steady resolve. "I have recordings of your threats and your role in drugging Dr. Carter. Ask about the defective equipment James supplied last month. Equipment that could have killed patients supplied last month." The crowd turned stunned as Marta Donovan's voice rang out. "Ask Mrs. Carter about Gabriel Sullivan, the pharmaceutical rep she had an affair with 35 years ago." James's real father. The ballroom erupted in chaos. James tried to flee, but was intercepted by Richard, while Dr. Chen blocked Olivia's path. "Your medical license is suspended," Dr. Chen said coldly. "The board has evidence of your crimes. You destroyed your family for revenge." Olivia spat at Nathan. "No," Nathan replied calmly. "You and James destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone saw the truth." As agents cuffed James, he snarled, "You'll regret this, brother." "We're not brothers," Nathan said, his voice clear and final. "We never were." The fallout was swift and devastating. James faced federal charges as investigators uncovered the scope of his operation, linking him to defective medical equipment across 12 practices in 3 states. His dental work, done with substandard materials, left him with a crooked smirk that made his court appearances infamous. Olivia's damage control attempts collapsed when Nathan revealed years of financial records, proving her theft. Her medical license was permanently revoked after Kayla's recordings exposed her role in the sedative scheme. She now faced charges of conspiracy, fraud, and medical sabotage. Kayla's plea deal proved pivotal, exposing corruption in the medical supply industry and preventing widespread disasters. Her daughter's scholarship was replaced with a legitimate fund, and her testimony prompted the FDA to order recalls of faulty equipment linked to multiple near deaths. 15 hospitals reported critical defects, Elena said at a board meeting. 3 patients nearly died last month. Nathan's revenge was complete. What began as betrayal ended as justice. The Carter name, tarnished by James and Olivia, was finally restored, clean and unyielding. The most satisfying moment came during James's bail hearing. His lawyer, while arguing community ties, inadvertently exposed additional fraudulent dealings. Each explanation unveiled more crimes, leading the judge to double his bail. "His smirk looks unhinged with that botched dental work," Elena observed. "Karma," Nathan replied. "Hipai's perfect timing." The personal fallout ran deeper. Dorothy Carter's social standing crumbled as James's true parentage came to light. Sullivan's name reopened decades-old scandals in the medical community, revealing that James had learned his scams directly from his biological father. 6 months later, Nathan addressed a crowd at Memorial Hospital. The Carter Medical Equipment Oversight Foundation has one mission: ensuring patient safety. Never takes second place to profit. The practice had emerged procurement processes and rigorous quality controls, inspiring other hospitals to follow suit. After his speech, Sophia Lawson, lead prosecutor on James's case, approached him, sharp and intelligent. She radiated determination. "Your foundation's work is revolutionizing medical oversight," she said. Their conversation extended into dinner, covering everything from ethics to corruption. "The real victory," she noted, "is preventing future victims." For the first time in months, Nathan felt at ease. He asked her to consult for the foundation. Impressed by her insight, a courier interrupted with a letter in his father's handwriting, written before his death. "My son, if you're reading this, the truth about James has emerged. I kept his parentage secret not to protect your mother, but to answer a question about nature versus nurture. I gave you both the same opportunities, and your choices revealed the truth. You are my son in every way that matters. Legacy isn't about DNA. It's about the lives we touch and the choices we make. Love, love. Dad? Nathan folded the letter and gazed out the window at the hospital where he had built his career and saved countless lives. Everything all right? Sophia asked. Better than all right? Nathan replied. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can never touch. As they returned to their discussion, Nathan felt the weight of betrayal lift. His true legacy lay in healing, not harm. 5 years later, Nathan visited James in a maximum security prison. James' once muscular frame had withered, his botched dental work leaving a permanent crooked smirk. Still using substandard art equipment, or should I say, Mr. Sullivan, Nathan remarked coldly, noting the poor prison dentistry that worsened James's condition. James, now serving a 15-year sentence, had been linked to $30 million in fraudulent medical equipment sales across 5 states, with defective supplies, contributing to 6 patient deaths. Come to gloat? James sneered, though his voice lacked confidence. Your perfect revenge not complete without a victory lap. Actually, I'm here on foundation business, Nathan replied, placing a folder on the table. We're documenting cases of medical equipment fraud. Your case is particularly comprehensive. The Carter Medical Equipment Oversight Foundation had grown into a national authority, with its certification mandatory in 12 states and federal legislation pending. Nathan left without looking back. His mission was no longer about revenge, but ensuring no one else suffered from the corruption that ensuring had tainted his family. The legacy he built was stronger than anything James could destroy. How's Olivia enjoying her new career? James asked, leaning back in his chair with a crooked smirk, the one forever etched into his face thanks to his botched dental work. His tone was laced with mockery, a last-ditch attempt to needle Nathan. Nathan remained unruffled, allowing unruffled himself a small smile. Last I heard, she's teaching hygiene to fellow inmates, he replied coolly, a step down from neurosurgery. But let's be honest, her ethics were always better suited to prison orange than a white coat. James's face darkened. Olivia's fall had been particularly brutal. After her medical license was permanently revoked, she tried to rebuild her social standing through high-profile charity work. But investigations soon revealed she'd been embezzling from those same charities. Now she was serving an 8-year sentence in minimum security, her designer wardrobe replaced by a drab prison uniform. It wasn't just the embezzlement, Nathan continued, his tone matter-of-fact. The investigation uncovered fact. Years of fraud, falsified credentials going back to med school, covering up malpractice claims. 3 of her surgeries are still under review. She was always a fraud. She just ran out of people to hide it for her. And Rachel? James asked, as though his bitterness was barely concealed. His attempt at casual conversation couldn't mask the sting of betrayal. Nathan's lip twitched at the mention of Rachel Martin. Turned state's evidence almost immediately, he replied. She handed over detailed records of her pharmaceutical scheme without hesitation. She saved herself a longer sentence, but it cost her everything. 5 years of supervised release and her medical license permanently revoked. Last I heard, she's working as a grocery store cashier in Nebraska. All those social connections, useless now. James let out a bitter laugh, but Nathan wasn't done. You should ask our mother, he added. James stiffened, and his smirk faltered. Dorothy Carter's downfall had been the most personal. Deception about James's parentage, her affair with Gabriel Sullivan, and the lies she told to protect her secret shattered her carefully constructed image. The fallout from the truth left her a pariah in the very society she once dominated. She's in Vermont now, Nathan continued, his voice steady, living alone in a small cottage, writing a memoir about generational trauma and the price of secrets. A quiet life for someone who used to revel in appearances. She still wouldn't visit, James muttered, his voice low. None of them will. Nathan stood, gathering his papers with deliberate precision. Actions have consequences, James, he said. Speaking of which, the class action lawsuit from the families affected by your defective equipment just got certified. Your remaining assets might cover 10% of the damages, if you're lucky. Before James could respond, the door opened and Dr. Vivian Chen entered. Now the chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had thrived despite adversity. Dr. Carter, she said. The foundation board meeting starts in an hour. How's my old practice doing? James called after them as Nathan turned to leave. It doesn't exist, Doctor, Chen replied coldly. Doctor, Carter's new medical center specializes in treating victims of fraudulent equipment like yours. We've had no shortage of cases. Carter's Center for Medical Ethics, rising from the ashes of Nathan's old practice, had become a beacon of integrity in the medical community. Its treatment programs and research initiatives attracted top talent, and its fellowship waitlist grew longer each year. Kayla Thompson, once a reluctant participant in James's schemes, had transformed her guilt into purpose. Now the foundation's compliance director, she spearheaded protocols to detect and prevent supply fraud. Kayla sends her regards, Nathan added to Dr. Chen as they left the prison. Her daughter just graduated from medical school. The foundation's scholarship program is doing well. Outside the prison gates, Sophia Lawson waited by their car. 5 years of marriage hadn't dulled her sharp instincts or her passion for justice. Their wedding rings bore an inscription with the date of James's conviction, a private joke about how fraud had brought them together. How's our star case study? Sophia asked, kissing Nathan on the cheek. Bitter, broken, still trying to manipulate. Nathan replied, his smile softening as he turned to her. How was your meeting with the Justice Department? The new task force is approved, Sophia said, her pride evident. Medical fraud enforcement is finally getting the attention it deserves. Sophia had turned her prosecution of James into a nationwide crusade against healthcare corruption. With her legendary conviction rate, she'd become a driving force behind new federal legislation aimed at safeguarding patient care. Later, at the foundation's headquarters, a sleek, modern building adjacent to the medical center, the board meeting began. A simple plaque in the lobby read, "Legacy is measured by the lives we touch, not the blood we share." The board reviewed ongoing investigations, certification programs, and treatment innovations. Richard's security firm handled compliance monitoring, while Layla's forensic accounting team flagged suspicious financial patterns. Dr. Chen reported on new treatment protocols and the center's success in helping victims of fraudulent medical supplies. There's one last update, Nathan said, addressing the board. Gabriel Sullivan passed away in prison last week. He never admitted to aiding James's schemes, but our analysis shows clear patterns linking their operations. Later that evening, as Nathan and operations, Sophia watched the sunset from their terrace. She mused, your father's experiment, nature versus nurture. It's left quite a legacy. He knew the truth, Nathan replied. Character is revealed in choices, not DNA. James and Olivia chose greed and destruction. Their consequences were self-inflicted. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a call from the medical center. Another patient, a victim of defective equipment, had arrived. Within minutes, Nathan and Sophia were on their way, united in their mission. 5 years had turned Nathan's revenge into a movement for change. The Carter name, once tarnished, now stood for integrity and healing. Where betrayal once lingered, purpose had taken root. This was Nathan's true legacy, not just rebuilding what was lost, but creating something greater, something untouchable. The foundation's work had saved countless lives, its mission reshaping the medical industry. While James counted the days in his prison cell and Olivia folded laundry in her minimum security facility, their once lofty ambitions had collapsed into bitter lessons. Their names remembered only in the cautionary tales taught in the foundation's ethics courses. Ready for another battle? Sophia asked as they stepped into the medical center, her voice steady, her wedding ring glinting under the evening light. Nathan smiled, his own ring catching the same glow. Always, he replied, some wars are worth fighting forever. Inside his office, the symbols of his life's work adorned the walls. Medical licenses, awards, and in a place of honor, his father's letter, framed beside a photo of the hospital that bore the family name. The final line of the letter echoed in his mind, as it had so many times before. Legacy isn't about DNA, it's about the lives we touch and the choices we make. Those words had guided him through every decision since the truth about James and Olivia had come to light. The choices had always been clear: heal or harm, build or destroy, serve or steal. James and Olivia had chosen paths of greed and deceit, and their consequences had been swift and severe. Their stories now served as warnings, their actions dissected in the Foundation's ethics courses as prime examples of the price of corruption. But the true legacy of the Carter Medical Equipment Oversight Foundation was not in exposing betrayal. It lived in the life saved, the fraud prevented, and the integrity restored to medical supply chains. Every patient treated, every case resolved, and every reform implemented was proof that healing could triumph over harm, and integrity could overcome greed. Nathan sat at his desk, his focus shifting to the evening's tasks. Another patient awaited treatment, another fraud case demanded attention, and another battle in the war against medical corruption called for leadership. The foundation had become a beacon of hope, leading the charge to protect patients from the kind of harm James and Olivia had wrought. Some victories aren't measured in revenge, Nathan mused aloud to Sophia as she handed him a file. But in life changed, she nodded, her prosecutorial instincts as sharp as ever, and some wounds heal stronger than before they were broken. Nathan thought of the path that had brought them here, of the betrayals that had once shattered his life. Those wounds had led to a mission far greater than anything he had, and mission built not on retribution but on purpose. The betrayals, though painful, had forged a better path, one of integrity, healing, and resilience. As the evening deepened, the work continued. The foundation grew with every choice made, every patient treated, and every fraud uncovered. And with each small victory, Nathan knew the truth. Character, not blood, defines a person's legacy. Some choices echo far beyond the moment they're made, touching lives, saving futures, and proving that redemption and purpose are born from the courage to choose healing over harm. The war against medical corruption was far from over. But with the Carter Foundation leading the charge, its victories would resonate for generations to come. Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters, and trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.